There are some years that they just change everything for you. For me, that year was 1964.
Back home in Germany, well, my world was pretty much one of quiet routine. Life had this predictable rhythm, you know? But that year, there was a new kind of energy humming just under the surface. You could just feel it, this sense that things were about to change.
And for me, that change, it really started in two places. Right there in our living room and, well, in my heart. It was a year of new beginnings, for sure.
One of the biggest changes, it came in a box, a Grundig television, and suddenly we had 2 whole channels. Can you imagine? We could watch these glamorous Italian films, or even the Grand Prix Eurovision Song Contest all the way from Copenhagen. It honestly felt like the whole world was being beamed right into our home.
But, the biggest change of all, it wasn't on a screen. It was a feeling, a person really, who turned my entire world upside down. Her name was Ute.
I actually wrote this in my diary, trying to put it into words. It's the kind of thing you write when you're young and just completely overwhelmed by first love, right? It really felt that simple, that powerful. Just seeing her made my world bright.
Our dates were, they were beautifully simple. We'd just walk through town for hours, just talking. Or we'd go to the cinema to see the latest English thrillers, these stories from a world that seems so exciting and so far away. It really felt like we had our own little secret world.
And then England started calling to me. I saw it as a chance for a real adventure. See, I had a pen pal over there, a girl named Shelagh, and this little idea of visiting her started to take root. It felt like a dream, a chance at a true summer of freedom.
Of course, it wasn't as easy as just packing a bag and going. Step 1, I had to convince my mother that this was a purely educational trip. To improve my English, of course. Step 2, I needed the money. At least £7, which was around 77 Deutschmark. That felt like a small fortune to me back then, but I was absolutely determined to make it happen.
And wow, what a world it was. Arriving in London was just a complete sensory overload. The noise, the lights, the sheer number of people at Piccadilly Circus, it was just nothing like the quiet, familiar streets of my German town. I had never, ever seen anything like it. Shelagh was great. She showed me all the famous places I'd only ever seen in pictures. But it was standing right here, in Trafalgar Square, surrounded by all that history and all that energy, that's when it really hit me. I wasn't just visiting anymore. I was on a real, honest-to-goodness adventure.
The whole trip was just a whirlwind of new sights and tastes. But more than anything else, it was defined by a sound. A new sound that was, it was taking over the entire world.
And you just couldn't escape it. The Beatles. They were absolutely everywhere. Their music was the soundtrack to that entire summer. It was the sound of being young, the sound of excitement, of feeling like anything was possible. Shelagh promised we'd go see their new film, A Hard Day's Night.
So, Sheila took me on a trip to a town called Blackpool. I had never, ever experienced anything like a British seaside resort. It was this wonderfully chaotic universe of piers stretching way out into the sea, the constant rattle of roller coasters, that smell of salty air, and just thousands and thousands of people, all there for one reason: to have a good time.
And it was right there in Blackpool that I really began to understand this new musical landscape. See, the Beatles had played in the very orderly opera house just a week before we got there, but the Rolling Stones, they played in the Empress Ballroom, and the crowd apparently rioted, completely tearing the place apart. I heard that Keith Richards said fans would start spitting at them, and he'd just kick them in the face. It was just 2 completely different kinds of energy, Beatlemania was pure joy, but the Stones, wow, that was something else entirely, something so much more raw.
But it wasn't all noise and chaos. We also took a trip to Llandudno in Wales. And we rode this beautiful, quiet little tramway all the way up a hill called the Great Orme. The view from the top, just looking out over the sea and the green hills, it was absolutely breathtaking. It was a moment of real, genuine peace.
This photo here, for me, this is the summer. That's me, that's Shelagh and her friend Birgit, who we'd met up with. We're on a beach, barefoot on the stones. The sky's a bit gray, you can see the wind is blowing, but we just didn't care. It was one of those perfect, simple moments of friendship and pure freedom.
And then, when it was finally time to go home, I just knew. I knew I wasn't the same person who had left a few weeks earlier. England, the travel, the people I'd met, that summer had opened my eyes to a much, much bigger world.
I remember on one of our last nights together, we were sitting around the dinner table with Birgit, just full of good food and laughter, and we were talking about the future and about how we didn't want this feeling to end. And that's when Birgit suddenly had this great idea.
We all raised our glasses, and we made a toast. Until next year in Copenhagen. It was perfect. See, Birgit's family was from there, and my own mother was actually born in Copenhagen too. So it was more than just another trip. It was a real plan, a connection. It was a promise that this feeling, this adventure, wouldn't end.
And I remember standing on Westminster Bridge that summer, looking at all these symbols of a country my parents' generation had fought against. And I had this really profound realization. The war our parents had to be a part of, that wasn't our war. We were different. We wanted a Europe without borders, a continent that we could explore freely, together, as friends.
That summer taught me something really important, that a journey isn't just about the places you go. It's about the person you become along the way. And it still leaves me wondering, what if the most important destination on any journey isn't a place on a map at all, but the person you've become when you finally get there?